In our recently held Traders Summit, we offered a continuing view that the market may yet have to zigzag towards its next possible target at 8,600. The Philippine Stock Exchange Index so far managed to be able to portray our preferred scenario by showing minimal corrections, keeping itself aligned prospectively for a potential resistance break. But we have some slower momentum readings that are upcoming, and the possible corrective swings that may come from the overstretched US market and as well as European markets, which may make this attempt to be a bit more choppy or cascading on its route. And this might provide some difficulty for traders into the short term, as volatility might likely still surface. As such, price swings may be controlled by price channels, and these channels may be quite prominent in quite a number of stocks that may actually show. This may require an adjustment in some of our entries by buying companies on the lower half of these channels rather than having to chase them up quite furiously. But again, we still have to be quite selective in what we look at, because we feel that this market may not induce a very broad-based movement, but rather a very selective one. All right. Today we're going to have a look at quite a number of stocks. I have over here is what I call my radar screen, and this is a combination of stocks that happen to show potential action for us. Now I have different colors coded into this particular table. I would assume that those that are in color black are still technically viable, but there are some issues here that might be a bit overbought or overstretched, which may require some corrections, and that would also force us to be able to wait for price pullbacks to be able to get in. Let's start off with Ayala Land. Now Ayala Land has had a decently good run. It's broken out of a big area pattern, and this break over that area pattern actually led to about a 2-week-long advance. Now it's about timely that the correction come out of Ayala Land, and that we would look for a potential buybacks perhaps closer to about 47 or maybe even 45.60 if possible. Resistance, we feel, came quite close, and because of that we're seeing more profit-taking action into the short term. Next we have Alliance Global. Now Alliance Global has broken its uptrend line in the last 2 weeks, and it might require some degree of consolidation for the meantime. Normally stocks, when they enter into a corrective field, would actually have to go through what we call an ABC maneuver, or a three swing corrective process. Right now it could be in the B wave, and we might be able to see a little bit more of a corrective action to be able to finish off its corrective pullback. It would really need to be able to push over 1560 to be able to accelerate its particular movement. But for the meantime, we would think that maybe a pullback closer to about 1420 or 1440 might be in order. Banca de Oro. Now Banca de Oro also generated a breakout situation, but in the last 2 days it's managed to be able to hit its short-term target quite quickly. And normally when stocks move up this fast, it may have to be able to undergo a quick corrective maneuver to adjust. Now we're looking at support closer to about 135 to 133 as a potential pullback for BDO, in which case should be able to provide us a good window to start buying again. Bloomberry. Now Bloomberry has been trying to be able to reach back into its previous high, and after doing so, it's managed to be able to bump its head on resistance. This resistance is about 13 pesos per share, and we've seen prices manage to be able to pull back from that area. It is now going to challenge its channel lows, and we're going to have to watch its support quite well. This support's between 1209 to about 12 pesos. If we do see a slight break from that, we might see Bloomberry attempt to react closer to about 1188 or about 1154. BPI. Now, this particular bank has been on a downtrend for quite some time, and it's now actually managed to be able to rally back to the high end of that channel. Now, this might be a little heavy in terms of resistance to break, but if it manages to do so, it might be able to extend its rally quite significantly. But for now, there might be a possibility that it might be able to pull back, and this pullback again is something that we should watch, because we've already noticed some side of advanced divergence into this. So keep an eye on BPI, but wait for the potential breakout of its downtrend line before you get in. International Container Terminal Services. Now this particular stock has gone up like a rocket ship. And I think after hitting the high band of its channel that it's probably due for a correction. And after hitting that high closer to about 139 or 140, a pullback is more likely in order. We would prefer to be able to look for entries closer to between 127, maybe even 122 if possible, to be able to offset some of the overbought conditions that it's currently looking at. But the uptrend for the stock is still secure. LTG. Now, the LTG group stock is doing quite well. It's just recently broken out of a falling wedge, and this particular breakout should be able to allow more continuity on the upside for the stock, looking at a potential swing perhaps closer to 1690 first, and then maybe followed between 1760 and 1805. Megaworld. The Megaworld has also rallied back to the high band of its consolidation. We feel resistance could be between 548 and 589, and it needs to be able to punch over this particular resistance zone to be able to continue. For now, the area pattern may attempt to be able to continue itself, but still the short-term or medium-term prospect here is still to be able to mobilize higher. A breach of resistance can look between 620 and about 630 immediately. Support for Megaworld is placed at 5 pesos and 40 cents. Meralco. Meralco is also in a recovery channel, and right now it's standing in the middle of the zone that it currently portrays. This extends resistance closer to about 395 pesos, and maybe even stretching all the way up to about 398 or even 400. Support of this consolidation band is at 375. Right now, just continue to be able to range trade this channel as long as it maintains itself. Robinson's Land is also into a price channel. It's recently moved back up to its previous high, and I would assume that there might be some resistance problems up ahead. And if it does pull back, then we might have to be more watchful of support at 23. Now, we've noticed some weakness in momentum here, so if it does pull back to 23, we just have to make sure we put a tight stop there, or else it might engage itself into a wider pullback. Security Bank. Now, Security Bank has managed to break out of resistance and managed to be able to generate a decent recovery, but it quickly fell back after hitting close to the high band of its channel as well. We'd have to be able to keep a close eye on support closer to 178.20, and hopefully if any entries would come in, it's during the fact that it would not break that supportive level. SM also had a rally recently, but it also did hit the high band of its particular consolidating high. It looks more like a rectangular range in which its high band is closer to about 976 pesos. The low band of its sideways channel is at 920 pesos. As long as the range continues to hold, then I will be looking to be able to range trade and better entries to be able to buy this between the halfway zone or maybe closer to the 920 zone if possible. San Miguel has always been into an uptrend for a while now, and it too managed to be able to test the area of resistance. It needs to be able to break over 182 to about 185 to be able to continue on. For now, I would suggest just holding on to the stock position for the moment and keeping a tight support stop at 173 pesos. SM Prime also did fairly well into the short term, but it may also need to be able to pull back. After hitting the high end of its price channel, it might be able to duck back in closer to about maybe 40 pesos or maybe even about 39.40. It needs to be able to hold above that support band in order for it to keep its rallying initiative going. Universal Robina Corporation has actually done well in the last few days. It shot up almost 4 straight days, broken out of the channel, but I think it's hit extremely overbought conditions that may more likely warrant a profit-taking session. A new setup will still have to be awaited for in this particular stock because I do not advise buying it as of this point until a worthy setup reappears again. Support for this will be closer maybe to 152, which is a bit far stretched from where it is right now. Let's look at Cemex. Now, Cemex has actually not fared too well in the last couple of months, but it has staged quite a good recovery in the last couple of weeks. It's now hitting a period of resistance closer to 2 pesos and 30 cents, and if it can manage to be able to push above this, then it might be on its way to try to recover back to about 2 pesos and 60 cents, which I feel is a much heavier area of resistance. For now, given the downtrend conditions we have, I would still advise to be able to lighten up into the next resistance zone. Cebu Landmasters. This stock has actually done well. It's broken out of an important resistance area, and this allowed it to be able to foster a very sharp advance in price. It's now standing here closer to about 4 pesos and 70, but the momentum reading here is still quite strong. Hold on to the position, but I'll be more careful about entering new positions as of this point until perhaps a little bit more of a correction can actually surface. Support right now is at 437. DM Wenceslao. Now this stock, similar to AGI, may also need to be able to correct a little bit more. I think this is an example of a stock that still needs to do an ABC type correction, and we're just accomplishing the B wave. And so there might be a need for it to be pulled back a little bit more. Support for this is closer at 1050, so any price that's probably moving closer to that might be a more ideal area to be able to enter. Emperador. Now, Emperador broke out of a reactive channel and managed to be able to engage in advance in the last few days. But this too might be needing also a little bit of a pause, as it is nearing some overbought conditions as well. I think you can be more graduated in your ability to buy this, and pullbacks are the best opportunities to take this. For now, 7 pesos and 40 cents is the first support, followed by about 7 pesos and 30 cents. Philinvestland actually broke out of a nice basing pattern, but in the last 3 days, it's managed to be able to strike up quite acceleratedly. This generated overbought conditions and might need for this to pause or maybe even pull back. Support for this is placed at 156 to 155, and that might be better areas for you to try to schedule more buys. For now, perhaps a little bit of profit taking might be interested for those who can do it, but for those who are thinking of only buying this right now, I would really suggest to be able to wait for that pullback to take place. Leisure Resorts World. Now, LR is currently building an area pattern, and preferably you can see that it's standing over the 200-day moving average, and this might force it to be able to wind within that band. Support here is closer to 365, while resistance is at 405. And a potential breakout above 405 may consequently lead to a very, very sharp advance. So do take watch of its consolidation it's taking place. You may range trade this particular band for the meantime, but of course a more aggressive stand will come in after a breakout of that 405 level. Macro Asia Corporation. Currently trading inside a price channel, and similar to what we saw in AGI, we may also need to have a ABC type correction here, and hopefully that C wave of a correction may be able to pull it back closer to the next support, which is about closer to about 21.20 to about 21 pesos. Maxis Group. Now this has done quite well in the last few weeks. And it might be a little bit on the high side as RSI levels are stretching closer to 74%. That is already the beginning of an overbought area. And this too might need to be able to pause or maybe react just a little bit. But still the rallying trend is maintained by this stock. So I would assume that holding a position here would still be viable, and placing a support stop closer at 14 pesos and 80 cents. Upside for this could be a potential 16.30 to maybe even 17 pesos. Metro Retail Stores Group, or Mrs. G. This stock is also portraying an upward channel and currently standing in the middle of this area. I've seen some loss of momentum so far, so this might cause a reaction in price into the short term, and that would mean that prices may try to be able to make a retracement closer to about 332 or even 320. So keep watch of a pullback here for a potential buy-in. Megawide. Now, Megawide is also into a strong up channel. However, I am seeing some potential signs of divergence in this particular graph. and that would mean that the potential reaction here could be a little wider than normal. I would be very watchful of support, which is at about 2180 to 2160. And if we do see a break of that, then we might see more pullbacks, maybe closer to 2090 or maybe even closer to 20. So perhaps tone down some aggressiveness over here. Maybe some lightening might actually be prudent as of the moment, but a potential buy into this upon a major reaction is something that people should really look forward to. FINMA Energy. This stock has also proved to be quite volatile into the short term, and it's been taking quite wide swings within an advancing channel as well. Unfortunately, it has hit the high band of that particular range, and given the context of our range trade strategy, we should be taking some profits at about this end and waiting for pullbacks closer to support. Support is between 153 to 144. Then we have Shakey's Pizza. Now, this is actually building a very, very large ascending triangle pattern. The context of the range is standing between an area closer to about 1338 or 1348, and the low sides of the range are looking closer to about 1283 to about 1230. Now, you can train the entire range for the meantime until a potential breakout scenario happens, but I am looking into the medium to long term as something facilitating a stronger advance, because if we do get a breakout from here, then we could contextually see at least a peso advance after that. Philippine National Bank, or PNB. Now, this stock is trying to be able to base from the reaction that it's managed to be able to do. It's pulled back closer to the 100-day moving average, and is now trying to generate a base building attempt. Now, if this 5121 area of support can actually hold, or 5075, then it might be able to facilitate a pushback closer to about 55 or 5550. It needs to break above this to be able to reinitiate the rally that it's actually shown in February and probably early in March. SSI Group. Now, this stock has gone up like crazy and is now hitting a very, very high band in terms of an overbought structure. With an 89% RSI, this is one of the stocks that have seen to be the most overbought situation into the short term, and that might really consequently lead to a very, very much needed exercise in terms of a price reaction. You can also see that its short-term moving average at 274 leads us to believe that the distance that we have showing risk right now is also quite wide. I would suggest taking some gradual profits in here for a potential pullback for SSI and waiting for a new setup strategy to be able to form before we look for potential buybacks. Then we have Wilcon. Now, Wilcon is also into a price channel. I am seeing some slowdown into its MACD indicator, and that would tell me that a potential reaction may also be available for the stock. A pullback perhaps closer to support of 1630 to about 16 is more likely warranted. We do hope that it can manage to stay above that, because if it doesn't, then we might be able to perhaps see an adjustable support pullback, maybe closer to 15.5, maybe even something closer to 15. So for now, maybe some profit taking might also be warranted so that we can take the advantage of any deeper pullbacks that come out from Wilcon. All right, so there we have it. We have all the lists of stocks that we've managed to do. Again, I'd like to be able to just caution all our viewers that we are still in a ranged environment. And given that we are in a range environment, that we could still see cascading movements. And do also take notice that we do have the overbought US market that we also have to contend with. And hopefully it does provide avenues for us to be able to offer up better areas to enter some of the stocks that we looked at. But keep focused on many of the issues we looked at, because these are the popular issues that have been trading good sized volumes and have shown good volatility for the traders in mind. So with that, good luck. And I hope to be able to see you at better entry spots so we can turn ourselves up for better opportunities in the future. Thank you for watching.